One, two, three. What's up, guys? Welcome to Runner City. I'm Chris. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to do a look through of my VHS collection. So, I came out with three, and we're going to look through these three movies here, and I'll give you like a brief history on their home media release. So, let's get into it. Right off the bat, we've got Steven Spielberg's 1982's E.T. Comes out June 11th, 1982. Makes about $400 million in the box office domestically. And I think worldwide, it ends up making around, at his first initial release, maybe around $500 million. Not too bad for a movie with only a $10 million budget. So, yeah, that's pretty good. So, E.T., smash hit for the studio. At this point in 1982, though, VHS and home media as a whole isn't really a thing yet. Only about 20% of households have a VHS player in their house, and the technology is really expensive still. And there's also still some competition between the formats. So people are still not really sure which format to really invest their money into. You got Betamax and you got VHS really duking it out there in the beginning. And yeah, the studios are just not, they don't see any growth there. Nobody's really buying them. They're still too expensive. So they're not really producing that many of them. So at this point, in 1982, there's not a push to have E.T. released on VHS. In fact, a year later, it gets a theatrical re-release. And in that re-release, it actually makes another $40 million in just that little re-release, which is also not bad for a movie coming out a year later in the theaters, which used to happen a lot with bigger movies. But anyway, so you get E.T. coming out. Universal and Disney especially are hesitant to put their movies out on VHS at this point. There's a rental market emerging, right? And the studios are not really seeing any of that money from the rental market just yet.
Convenience stores, pharmacies, grocery stores, everyone is getting in on the act. Competition is so intense, some video places have even been forced out of business.
Survival of the fittest. Okay, you have to be hungry and you have to go after it. And the best businessman, whether it's video or any business in the country, the best businessman will survive.
To stay ahead of the competition, many video stores have changed their membership policies. They've also increased their inventory. And in some cases, you can get a pizza delivered right along with the videotape.
Rental stores are getting charged a certain amount for these tapes, and then they're renting them out to you for a smaller price and making money hand over fist over one copy. So at this point, movie studios are not really seeing any money through that, and they're not really seeing that much success there anyway. So they're not really paying attention yet. Not yet, anyway. So, cut to 1985 or 1986, you have Top Gun. Top Gun comes out like we talked about in our last video. Top Gun's a smash hit. Top Gun sees the opportunity now in 1986. Rental market is strong. Movie studios are starting to get more involved with these rental stores. And I think around this time, Blockbuster Video and other chain rental stores are starting to pop up. And so video ownership is starting to become a possibility. And so Paramount jumps on it with Top Gun with a sell-through strategy, which is basically selling the movie at a low price, an affordable price. So instead of your usual $60 to $100, which some of these movies could cost, you would be able to get Top Gun for $26.95. So we talked about that in the last video. A year later, Universal jumps on that. They see the success of E.T. and people waiting for a home media release. At this point, there's a lot of anticipation because the movie hasn't come out for rental or anything like that. And so people want to see it. People want to see E.T. again and relive the magic. So finally, 1988. Where we at? Hold up. So ET and Universal, they're tied in with Reese's. So I don't know if you remember, but I didn't remember. There's a scene where Elliot coaxes ET the alien into his house with Reese's Pieces. Ooh, piece of candy. So Reese's Pieces and ET, they got each other's back. They get into the stores. ET undercuts the sell-through price that Top Gun had at $26.95, and they're selling at $24.95. So now we got an affordable price for ET, and it's a smash. It breaks records. It comes out right before the holidays, so this ends up in pretty much under every Christmas tree. I believe that's probably when this copy was bought. And so, yeah, you get ET, and it breaks records. The previous VHS record was Cinderella. This, and at the time, Top Gun, I think, sold about 22.9 million units and made for like about $75 million. Whereas ET, I think, sells 15 million units at $150 million profit. So that's a pretty good profit. And yeah, that's ET's home release. So ET also gets released later, another VHS release, different like artwork, and I think it gets a clamshell box as well. And then we go on, it gets DVD and Blu-ray releases too. So ET, like I said, it's tied in with Reese's, and before it actually gets its October release, it also has like a pre-release, like you could call a 1-800 number and get a pre-order copy, or you could pre-order your copy of ET. And so that basically is there for the studios to be able to have like a judgment of how good the movie's going to sell when it actually hits stores. And the pre-orders do gangbusters, and so does the initial first sales when this comes out, and probably throughout the year. Like that movie gets sold a lot. 15 million units is a lot. So at this point in 1988, the shift has gone from VHSs only being in 20% of households to now about 70% of households. So ET ends up in a lot of people's homes.
Only about 35% of us own VCRs, but that figure is growing rapidly, so the video store war is likely to continue. Elizabeth McGuire, Toledo 11 News.
Okay, so let's talk about the actual physical copy here that I have here. So the artwork you see here, I believe, was designed by a guy named John Alvin, who made the poster art for ET. Believe he also has made poster art for other films, maybe a few Disney films as well. And so, yeah, you got John Alvin's artwork there, the iconic moon and Elliot and the alien kind of riding through their bike, going through the moon, and the forest in the bottom there. There was actually two variants of posters that could have been that are out there. So you got this one, and you also have another one, which is basically you see of ET and Elliot's hands kind of like touching each other, or reaching out for each other. And the inspiration for that was Michelangelo painting of like the creation of Adam, I believe. And there's a picture there of like God's hand reaching out, and I think Adam touching it. Not really sure. It's been a while since I've been to Sunday school. So yeah, that's the cover. That's the cover. This is the back here. Classic, kind of the way the back of these Universal VHS box covers used to look. Yeah. So that's ET there. Let's check out the actual physical tape. So you can see the tape. The tape there, this is something that you don't see that much of. In the beginning, like I said, the studios were kind of wary about releasing their copies of the movies on tape, fear of bootlegging and stuff like that, knockoff copies. And so they implemented a couple like safety measures. One of them was like this green plastic that they would use and put and use on with their VHS tapes. So the green plastic was kind of something that was like hard to get a hold of or form into plastic or what have you. And so it was just something that was unique, like a unique feature that would distinguish this one from like bootlegs or knockoffs. And so you got the green plastic there. You got holograms from the movie studio. I don't know if you can see it. I'll try to get like a close up there for you guys. And then on the inside, I believe there's like a I want to get on the actual tape. I believe they have like an encoding, like a security encoding. So yeah, that's ET. The original was the original format was widescreen, 1.85, and so the VHS copy is scaled down to your 4.3 version for TV screens. So the square box, it kind of cuts out some characters and some scenes. I believe in the moon scene, well, no, in the scene where the kids was a bunch of them riding on bikes. A few of the when they all like kind of pass through the sunlight, a few of the kids are kind of cropped out because of the format. And let's see, the house in general, when watching the movie through like Elliot's house, watching it on the VHS copy, everything looks a little cluttered, like a little claustrophobic, because you can't see the whole house, like everything, the whole layout of the house. Everything's really all the shots are kind of tight on the subjects, and so we don't really get the crazy layout of the house, which when watching the like DVD 4K version, I didn't realize because I've seen the VHS for the pan and scan 4.3 version so much. Um, I had no memory of the movie that I was watching when I was watching it on 4K. So it's quite the experience when you have your memory of a movie, and then you have your memories of the way the movie is, and then later on you see it again through another format, and it's almost like a totally different experience. Certain scenes, especially.
Extraterrestrial. Where's he from? Uranus? Get it? Your anus? He doesn't get it, Dad. Get it? Your anus? He doesn't get it.
Last time we talked, what was the movie? Fight Club. Fight Club was one of the VHS copies that I had picked out before, and the difference between the formats on that one. Ooh, I'm making the screen move here. I'm sorry. This is not that bad, but like I said, when you're watching it, you kind of forget, like, oh yeah, I forgot what the rest of their house looks like. The parts where Elliot and ET are kind of connected in the hospital beds. For a moment there, I forget that they're even in Elliot's house still. For the longest time as a kid, I kind of just remembered them, being in that like makeshift lab together. And as an adult, I'm watching it and I kind of totally forgot that, oh yeah, the Men in Black just kind of came in and raided Elliot's house and just set up shop right there in his neighborhood. So totally forgot about that. And it's really apparent when you watch the like the 4K original version. You could see the whole house, in the scenes where Elliot and ET are kind of like reaching out for each other, and Elliot's crying, ET's about to die. Um, you could see in the background, oh yeah, there's the couch, there's the house, there's Gertie, like I said, sometimes there's characters that are completely like just cropped out of the scene that when you see them in the original version, like, oh yeah, I forgot about, didn't remember that Gertie was in so many scenes. All right, so next up we've got Batman. That's right, 1989, Tim Burton's 1989's Batman. Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson. Classic box, classic movie. So we haven't seen the kind of anticipation for a movie that we saw with Batman since like Star Wars.
Holy cow syndrome.
You guys heard of Batman? If you're watching this channel, you guys heard of Batmania. If not, type it in YouTube and check out some great YouTube channels, documentaries on Batmania. Right? So Batmania is just like crazy fan hype for the movie to come out, and just a love and need for everything and anything Batman. So you get merchandise of all kinds that are tied in with the Batman movie release. T-shirts, toys, just models, anything you could think of. Coffee cups, silverware, all of it. So Batman's a smash hit. And like I said, 1989, at this point, you had E.T. show that movies could be released and make a lot of money in the home media and with the sell-through strategy. Not only make money in the rental markets, but also people want to own it. And Warner Brothers knows that every boy is going to want to own a copy of this Batman.
For you, what's black and gold and soon to be seen in living rooms all over the country? Why, of course, it's the Batman video. And here's our very own boy wonder, Mike Randall, with the story. He was Buffo at the box office. Chances are he'll find victory at the video stores. I feel a little underdressed for this story. That's more like it.
So Batman gets released in 1989, and 5 months later, in November, I believe November 15th, 1989, Batman gets its VHS release. So like 4 or 5 months, goes right to VHS release, which is unheard of. At this point, movies are getting released to VHS in about 12 to 18 months. So Batman gets released very, very quickly. So November 15th, it gets its VHS release and basically proves to all the studios that movies can be released, a couple months later after the theatrical release, and it won't hurt the theatrical release, and it'll actually, and the movie on the physical copy of VHS will actually make money and generate a profit for the studio, especially with a big movie like this. So they jump all over the model that E.T. and Top Gun implemented, sell-through strategy, and they're all about putting this in your house. So Batman gets a tie-in with, like I said, a bunch of merchandise. I think there was like about 200 companies that they were tied in with to do merchandise, as well as Coca-Cola, and they had their tie-in with Prince and the music studio and releasing a soundtrack and music videos and things like that. And it was all just basically to just push massive awareness for this movie. So yeah, 1989, this movie comes out, $24.95. And at this point in 1989, we go from 20% of VHS being in people's homes to, like I said, 70%. So, and it might even be more. It's probably like 90%. By like 1990, everybody's got a VHS player. Most houses have a VHS player. And most people are renting movies, and some people are just starting to build a collection at home, right? So at this point, the rental market is strong. I think the rental market outperforms sales like 10 to 1 at this point. And so it's a little risky to produce massive movies and push to the sell through strategy. But Batman's such a big hit, it's kind of a no brainer. They know people are going to want this in their house, and so this ends up everywhere, and it ends up in most people's homes, including mine. And again, a movie that gets released like E.T. in the summer can get a VHS release in the wintertime just in time for the holidays. So that's a plus right there.
His way to pick some up. Just look for a black car. No, this black car will be rather difficult to miss.
Okay. So let's talk about the look of Batman. This VHS copy of Batman. We'll talk about the VHS copy of Batman, and we'll talk about my experience with this particular copy because I had quite the experience. So this is like one of my oldest tapes here, along with ET. These two are pretty old. You can tell they're pretty beat up. These copies. So this one's even got some tape on the side just to help it out on the top. So this one's pretty beat up. This one's seen a lot of play. I'm surprised that thing even still played. So we'll get into it. My experience, well, first off, the format that this was originally shot in was like ET 1.85 widescreen. And for the VHS release, got to get cropped down to 4.3 for your TV screen so it could fit. Nice square TV. So in Batman, that's not the drastic part, the cropping of the image. The problem with Batman, the VHS release, is VHS can't really handle a ton of resolution like CD can. So back in the day, I think VHS it's like 200 to 400 lines of information that a VHS tape can produce. And so basically what that means is there's like a real low color grade. And so there's not like a large variant between colors. The difference between colors are very minimal. So like something like this here, like a burgundy, will sometimes just kind of like bleed into like a muddy brown. And so with a dark movie like Batman, that happens a lot because VHS has a hard time with like contrast and like high resolution and detail. So because it can't really handle the contrast, most VHS copies, the masters, are like brightened up a little bit. And so that's why sometimes you'll see a VHS copy and sometimes the image will look a little brighter than the original 35 millimeter copy. So, for example, so there's things like the Joker's suits, right? They don't really have that pop that like you kind of see in like the original release. And what I also noticed was like the Batman chase. Batman chase, maybe it's also because they had to like crop out the widescreen stuff, and so you don't get like the full image of the chase, and because the image is so dark and you don't get like all that quality in the image, the night chase scene just looks a little like not just looks a little weak, just doesn't pop as it does if you watch like the 35 millimeter version or like even the DVD version. Now when I watched this along with the DVD version, I noticed that the DVD version was way brighter and way more colorful than I remember. And so I had to look back and see what the original 35 scan looked like. And it didn't look like the DVD version. The 35 millimeter was a lot grainier and a lot darker. And so, like I said, the VHS is the color is like pumped up. And so for the DVD version, It looked like the color were brightened and also like enhanced to the point where it was almost distracting. Like the Joker suit almost looked too like purple, and it made it look almost too comic booky than I remembered. So there was something weird going on there with the DVD copy that I was watching. And then everybody knows, if you guys are watching, you might know that the Blu-ray or the 4K version of Batman also has um, some transfer issues. So Batman's been has long history of not getting a proper transfer to home media. So I'll tell you about my experience in watching this particular VHS copy. Like I said, this particular copy is from 1989. It's gotten a lot of play off of it. I'm surprised it still works. It barely works. The image quality on this when I was watching it was so dark. In some scenes, you could barely see anything. And I'm watching it in a dark room, and I'll show you guys some of the images, what they look like on my TV. But in the dark moments, which are a lot in Batman, you can't see anything. The beginning scene on the rooftop, I think the only scene where you see anything is where he holds the guy up, and he asks him if he knows who he is, and it tells him to tell his friends about me. Um, so yeah, the whole movie was just almost unwatchable in those dark scenes. And then everywhere else, like I said, the images is just like, you could see how I remember how dark and muddy the VHS version of Batman was, even back in the day before whatever degradation happened to this VHS copy. Um, I always remember watching this on VHS, and people are always saying, "Why is it so dark?" Like, couldn't like it was just a dark movie to watch on VHS. Dark meaning you can't see anything on the TV, especially if you got the sun behind you and you got the glare on the TV. It's just impossible. So yeah, this movie was just hard to watch. But I watched it through. I watched it together, like I said, with the DVD version, which was extremely different. Um, Almost like watching a different, like it was almost like having like a different director um, make the present the movie for you. Just because how crazy vibrant the colors were in the DVD version, that just like almost cheapened it a little bit. And like I said, how bright it was, um, it almost seemed like you could see parts of the set that maybe you weren't really supposed to see. Um, Details in the suit that you're really not supposed to see. You know, when in the 35 millimeter scan, his suit just looks like he looks like a statue. Looks cool. And then you go to like the crispier DVD version or Blu-ray version, and it shows you so much detail, but you could kind of see the suit is like made out of rubber. You could see seams, and you kind of lose um, the authenticity of the way some of the sets were built and how they were supposed to look. And now you could see them a little more and a little better, and that wasn't the original intention. And you feel that when you're watching both versions. You feel that, oh, this is a different version of the movie that I'm watching here. The version on DVD seems like a closer cousin to like Batman Forever movies and Batman and Robin, like the Joel Schumacher movies. So maybe that's what they were going for when they made that when they made the master to that DVD, because it was released in the collection with all four of them. So possible they just wanted them to make them all look kind of the same, but the DVD version of Batman is extremely different. And ET's suffers a little bit from the transition as well. ET, it's a little foggy and a little like smudgy, like the ET's finger, when it glows red, it's a little overexposed on the VHS copy. The degradation on this particular copy, when I watched it, wasn't as bad as Batman. Mm, there definitely was some degradation in nighttime scenes, but yeah, Batman was just almost impossible. Um, I had to keep switching back and forth between the Batman VHS version and then the DVD version that I had. I was just like, I'd switch back and forth, and with Batman, I had to switch back and forth just to be able to see what happened. But other than that, the VHS version is presented in stereo, and the stereo sounded really good. Um, doesn't really capture those highs very well, but it's very loud and bassy. And yeah, I remember the end um, scene where he's in the bat plane. Uh, music and sound effects and all that just really kind of pumping out my speakers on that one. So that was good. So the sound still works. The degradation on the image quality on this is it's pretty bad. And so yeah, so Batman's success basically proves to the movie studios and the industry that you can release a movie 5 months after its release, and not only will it not affect the theatrical release itself, but it even has its own like life and can make its own bit like what do you call that, like a significant amount of money in like the home media market and in the rentals market too, because at this point now in 1989 the movie studios are a little more partnered up with the rental companies, like I was saying before. Okay, so let's talk about the cover art for Batman. This particular copy, you got the Batman logo, the Batman shield, and this movie, not many movies just have a logo and no text. And funny enough, when this first came out, people didn't even know really what this was. For some people, if you didn't watch the comic books, this wasn't an image that when you saw it, you instantly thought of Batman. So that's how powerful this was after that movie, because this image was everywhere. They slapped it on all the merchandise, and yeah, this was quite a striking image. And to take the Batman logo and basically keep it the way it originally was drawn, and just kind of give it, add the gold and like the shiny black, and make it like so big that it can't even fit like on the poster or on the cover. It's just like so enormous that it just takes up the whole thing. And to just have that only to sell your movie is a bold, bold move. And they went for it, and it was a success. And they used it on the VHS tape, right? So that's that cover. The cover art was made by Bill Garland. He designed the cover for that, or the poster art for that. And pretty simple. Just the Batman logo, just instead of yellow, it's gold. It's just like almost like Batman's getting that Hollywood treatment. Batman's getting like Batman's getting the golden treatment. I don't know. So there's the back. Okay. I'll try to show you guys a close up of these tapes too.
This is an experience like no other, writes Peter Travers of Rolling Stone magazine. It's the greatest underwater adventure ever filmed.
Okay. So The Abyss. Our next movie is The Abyss. 1989. August 9th, 1989, James Cameron releases The Abyss.
Consistently enthralling of the summer blockbusters, one of the best pictures of the year. it's also something even more unexpected.
Not a big hit in the box office. Costs a lot of money to make. I don't know if you guys seen the making behind this movie, the behind the scenes of this movie, but they went through a lot. I'll just say that. So The Abyss comes out, mediocre box office. So doesn't get the sell through treatment like E.T. and Batman and Top Gun does back in the day. Right? So movie studios are really only doing that for its like premier titles. You got Disney doing it for some of its older animation movies. And right now, like I was saying before, rentals are outperforming video sales 10 to 1. So the rental market is stronger, and the studios have their hands in that now a little bit. They're partnered up with them, and they're able to make some revenue now
A
from
love
rental
story
sales
of
or
shattering
rentals.
impact. The
And
Abyss
The
opens
Abyss
August 9th
actually
at theaters
does pretty
everywhere.
good in its rental period. It wins a couple Academy Awards, and so the hype, the little prestige that I got behind that, people start getting interested in watching it at home. Apparently, the what was also popular about the rental, the home media tape back then, is people wanted to rent it because the tape had the trailer for Die Hard 2 in it. And so The Abyss, from what I heard, Die Hard 2 was a trailer that was featured in the beginning. Um, and it's something that which just popped up in my research, which I thought was funny. So The Abyss is shot in the 2:3:5 ratio. And so this has the like most drastic change when cropped down to the fit your TV at the 4.3. So a lot's kind of left out. And as far as the VHS copy, I was watching it back and forth between the VHS copy and the 4K version. And it's pretty night and day. The underwater scenes, because it's in VHS, and the resolution is pretty low, the underwater scenes are pretty murky, a little foggy. Really can't see into can't see too much depth into the underwater scenes, especially when Ed Harris is kind of walking around in the suit and dives off the cliff to go see the aliens. In that scene, um, I remember watching it on VHS, and you could only really see Ed Harris in his suit and like surrounded by the blue, just ocean and blackness. And when I went over to the 4K version, you could see a lot more of the cliff face behind him and the bubbles and just way more detail that they really went through a lot to show you. They really built a full size, big tank for this movie to basically shoot all the underwater stuff in. And so all of that trouble, and it gets released on VHS, and you really can't see it.
It began 2 years ago in an unfinished nuclear power plant. It became one of the most challenging motion pictures ever made.
It still looks amazing. The movie's still exciting and all that stuff, but yeah. And the at the end when the Ed Harris visits the little aliens, um, the light that comes off of the aliens on the VHS copy is really overexposed and washes is like really washed out, and you can't even really see what the aliens like really look like, because the image is like kind of distorted and just washed out from the way it's lit. So it's just like a blob that's like holding Ed Harris's hand and flying him through Blob City. Where when you go through the 4K version, you could actually see the detail in the city, and you could see the detail in the aliens. And there's some points in the VHS version where you see that, but it's way more apparent in the 4K version. So for that, the VHS wasn't as bad as far as um, the experience. Like it wasn't like a drastic experience as the other two, as like Batman was. Batman watching it between the VHS and the DVD was like watching like two different movies. E.T. not as bad. In E.T., I think you were able to just tell how much of a badass of a director Steven Spielberg is, because he really does. You forget that Steven Spielberg knows where to put a camera and how to shoot a scene. He knows how to shoot a scene. He knows how to move a camera, and he has the movie in his head. He knows how it should be edited and cut, and you can see that in ET. It's not that complicated. It's not that like crazy of a movie. There's not that much going on. The whole movie just takes place in a neighborhood, in a house, basically. And there's so much done there. So much done in this movie with very, very little. And that's what I took away from my rewatching of ET, because I haven't seen this in a long time. And so I remember, like, as a kid, like I wasn't like a big fan. I was kind of pretty small when this came out, pretty young when this came out, so it's kind of sad. ET dying for like a half an hour of the movie, and then he's got to go. That's all a real bummer. So yeah, I remember like when I was about to rewatch this, thinking like, I hope I could sit through this movie. Like, I know it's great and everything, and everybody loves it, but sometimes with these great movies, sometimes it's a little bit of a sit. It's a little bit of an ask, and I thought that's what this was going to be like, and it wasn't. It's really good. I'm bawling my eyes out when ET's dying. Spoilers. He doesn't die though. Actually, he does die, but he comes back.
Have to look with better eyes than mine. Don't do me, bud, please. Do you hear me?
He's coming up fast.
So, this particular copy of The Abyss, I forgot to even mention that this is not the original version. This here is a re-released version of The Abyss. And so, like I talked about before, in the mid 90s here, all the movie studios at this point, sales and rental video market are at an all-time high. People are buying movies, people are collecting them, people are renting them. It's just big business. And so the movie studios want to jump on it and be able to take an advantage of people collecting older titles. And so they re-release a lot of their older movies and re-release them on VHS. And some of them were sometimes released with extra footage or behind the scene things. Fight Club, in our last video that we talked about, came with like a behind the scenes featurette at the end of the movie on the VHS. And The Abyss, this one isn't a special edition version. It's just a selections. Yeah, so this one is just a selections version. There was another version that came out maybe a year later that was a special director's like edition that had like the 28 minutes of extra footage at the end, where the aliens show humanity their faults, and they tell them, you guys you keep messing around, we're gonna blow you up with your own stuff, keep fucking around. And they bring Ed Harris up and they show themselves, and then the movie ends. That's how the actual movie ends. But yeah, in the 28-minute extra version, they basically pop up and they talk to the world, and they basically threaten like a typhoon or a nuclear explosion or something. I forget what it is. Um, and then they like kind of like stop it in like mid disaster, and everybody's like, "Oh, thank you." So yeah, movie studios would try to do that with their re-releases on VHS, and The Abyss was one of them. And this one isn't a version. I don't think so. No, yeah, no. This is just select series. So the select series, like I said, Fox would just put out or a bunch of other movie studios would do this. Fox did this. Mm, some Universal titles would get re-released on VHS. Like E.T. was re-released on VHS in a clamshell box. Batman gets re-released in a clamshell box, right? So movies get re-released, and like I was saying before, The Abyss didn't have a big home media release push. It was sold at the regular price for back then, which was like the $60 to $80 range, and so that's why it was just only kind of something that people sought after when it hit the rental stores, and it was a rental cult hit, but um, it wasn't something. The movie didn't really make a lot of money, and so at this point in the mid '90s, there's a market there. James Cameron is James Cameron before Titanic. He's James Cameron after True Lies. So yeah, after Terminator 2 and True Lies, you know, James Cameron probably, if you put out a movie by James Cameron on VHS, it's probably going to do well. And so they re-release Aliens and the Terminator, like we talked about in our last video, and they release The Abyss. And so that's this copy here. And so this is the newest copy here that I have also. To the back. The cover, I think, from what I found, it's pretty hard to find out the information on who made the cover. From what I saw, I believe a studio called Art Machine designed and produced the poster or the cover art for this VHS. But while I was looking to see who designed this poster, I was also looking to see who designed the original poster, and I wasn't able to really get like a definitive answer on who created the original poster for The Abyss. But I did find that Mobius, the French artist Mobius, he actually did some concept art for James Cameron for The Abyss, and I'll show those too, like some concept art of what the aliens could look like. So I'll show those below. And so, like I said, this is also the newest version or the newest VHS here. So the degradation is not as apparent in the other movies. The only thing is, like I said, the underwater scenes are a little murky, a little foggy, but other than and you just lose detail. The biggest thing is just format, right? It gets cropped down from the 235 to the 4:3, so you lose a lot of information in certain scenes, especially with the water tentacle and a lot of the underwater scenes. Like I said, in the VHS, you're watching scenes where they have those little submersibles and they're flying through or they're driving or floating, whatever you want to call it, when things are moving in the ocean, submarining in the ocean. Um, Throughout those scenes, it's hard to pick up like what's going on in the background and things like that. So, yeah, that's The Abyss. So, yeah, oh, and the other thing I thought was interesting is that on this version. This is a new version of The Abyss from Fox Video, but the original VHS was from CBS Fox Home Video. So CBS and Fox had a partnership together to produce home media. I think they also, CBS and HBO had a partnership too as well. So CBS and Fox had a partnership in the early days, and The Abyss is one of their titles. And funny enough, this re-release version of The Abyss has the CBS Fox little logo there on the actual tape. So I thought that was pretty cool. Oh, and I guess, I don't know if I showed you guys what the Batman looked like, but that's the Batman. So yeah, all these, you can see these didn't have the green plastic to make it so distinct and so hard to copy. But that kind of went away. A lot of Universal movies did the green plastic. Man, I think Nickelodeon movies would get released like on an orange tape. But yeah, this is not something that got put into practice a lot. Mainly, the actual physical tape has a encoding on it that prevented like any kind of unauthorized bootlegging or copying or playing on machines that it shouldn't be playing on, right? So these probably won't play on machines sold in certain regions. I know that's the case for DVDs. But I believe that's the case for VHS tapes too as well. Okay, so those are the movies. So I'll be back next time with another 3, and we'll run down the history of those movies. And I'll see you guys later. You guys be good. Peace out. Bye.